Hi, welcome back to Gena's book Nook. We're on part 4 of Ray Bradbury's Dandelion Wine. I hope that you're enjoying it. I think it's just the perfect summer read, and I look forward to getting through it. And I gotta be honest, I try to keep these at half an hour, and I don't want to stop. I just want to keep going. So I hope that either you've bought the book and you're reading through it quickly, or you're just listening all the way through. So with that, let's jump right in. Grandfather smiled in his sleep. Feeling the smile and wondering why it was there, he awoke. He lay quietly listening, and the smile was explained. For he heard a sound which was far more important than birds or the rustle of new leaves. Once each year he woke this way and lay waiting for the sound, which meant the summer had officially begun. And it began on a morning such as this, when a boarder, a nephew, a cousin, a son, or a grandson came out on the lawn below and moved in consecutively smaller quadrangles, north and east and south and west, with a clatter of rotating metal through the sweet summer grass. Clover blossoms, the few unharvested dandelions, fire ants, sticks, pebbles, remnants of last year's July 4th squibs and punks, but predominantly clear green. A fountain leaped up from the chattering mower. A cool, soft fount. Grandfather imagined it tickling his legs, spraying his warm face, filling his nostrils with the timeless scent of a new season begun, with the promise that, yes, we'll all live another 12 months. God bless the lawnmower, he thought. Who was the fool who made January 1st New Year's Day? No, they should set a man to watch the grasses across 1,000,000 Illinois, Ohio, and Iowa lawns, and on that morning, when it was long enough for cutting, instead of ratchets and horns and yelling, there should be a great swelling symphony of lawnmowers reaping fresh grass upon the prairie lands. Instead of confetti and serpentine, people should throw grass sprays at each other on the one day each year that really represents the beginning. He snorted at his own lengthy discussions on the affair, went to the window and leaned out into the mellow sunshine, and sure enough, there was a boarder, a young newspaper man named Forrester, just finishing a row. "Morning, Mr. Spaulding." "Give 'em hell, Bill," cried Grandpa heartily, and was soon downstairs eating Grandma's breakfast with the bay window open so the rattling buzz of the lawnmower lulled about his eating. "It gives you confidence," Grandpa said. "That lawnmower, listen to it." "Won't be using the lawnmower much longer." Grandma set down a stack of wheat cakes. "They got a new kind of grass Bill Forrester's putting in this morning. Never needs cutting. Don't know what they call it, but it just grows so long and no longer." Grandpa stared at the woman. "You're finding a poor way to joke with me." "Go look for yourself, land's sake," said Grandma. "It was Bill Forrester's idea. The new grass is waiting in little flats by the side of the house. You just dig small holes here and there and put the new grass in spots. By the end of the year, the new grass kills off the old and you sell your lawnmower." Grandpa was up from his chair, through the hall, and out the front door in 10 seconds. Bill Forrester left his machine and came over, smiling, squinting in the sun. "That's right," he said. "Bought the grass yesterday. Thought while I'm on vacation I'd just plant it for you." "Why wasn't I consulted about this? It's my lawn," cried Grandfather. "Well, thought you'd appreciate it, Mr. Spaulding." "Well, I don't think I do appreciate it. Let's see this confounded grass of yours." They stood by the little square pads of new grass. Grandpa toed at it with one end of his shoe suspiciously. "Looks like plain old grass to me. You sure some horse trader didn't catch you early in the morning when you weren't fully awake?" "I've seen this stuff growing in California, only so high and no higher. If it survives our climate, it'll save us getting out here next year once a week to keep this darn stuff trimmed." "That's the trouble with your generation," said Grandpa. "Bill, I'm ashamed of you. You're a newspaper man. All the things in life that were put here to savor, you eliminate. Save time, save work, you say." He nudged the grass trays disrespectfully. Bill, when you're my age, you'll find out it's the little savers and little things that count more than big ones. A walk on a spring morning is better than an 80-mile ride in a hopped-up car. You know why? Because it's full of flavors, full of a lot of things growing. You've time to seek and find. I know you're after the broad effect now, and I suppose that's fit and proper. But for a young man working on a newspaper, you got to look for grapes as well as watermelons. You greatly admire skeletons, and I like fingerprints. Well and good. Right now, such things are bothersome to you, and I wonder if it isn't because you've never learned to use them. If you had your way, you'd pass a law to abolish all the little jobs, the little things, but then you'd leave yourselves nothing to do between the big jobs, and you'd have a devil of a time thinking up things to do so you wouldn't go crazy. Instead of that, why not let nature show you a few things? Cutting grass and pulling weeds can be a way of life, son. Bill Forrester was smiling quietly at him. I know, said Grandpa, I talk too much. There's no one I'd rather hear. Lecture continued, then. Lilacs on a bush are better than orchids, and dandelions and devil's grass are better. Why? Because they'll bend you over and turn you away from all the people in the town for a little while and sweat you and get you down where you remember you got a nose again. And when you're all to yourself that way and you're really yourself for a little while, you get to thinking things through alone. Gardening is the handiest excuse for being a philosopher. Nobody guesses, nobody accuses, nobody knows, but there you are. Plato in the peonies, Socrates force growing his own hemlock. A man toting a sack of blood manure across his lawn is kin to Atlas letting the world spin easy on his shoulder. As Samuel Spaulding, Esquire, once said, dig in the earth, delve in the soul. Spin those mower blades, Bill, and walk in the spray of the fountain of youth. End of lecture. Besides, a mess of dandelion greens is good eating once in a while. How many years since you had a dandelion greens for supper, sir? We won't go into that. Bill kicked one of the grass flats slightly and nodded. About this grass now, I didn't finish telling. It grows so close it's guaranteed to kill off clover and dandelions. Great God in heaven, that means no dandelion wine next year. That means no bees crossing our lot. You're out of your mind, son. Look here. How much did all this cost you? $1 a flat. I bought 10 flats as a surprise. Grandpa reached into his pocket, took out the old deep-mouthed purse, unclasped the silver clasp, and removed from it 3 $5 bills. Bill, you just made a great profit of $5 on this transaction. I want you to deliver this load of unromantic grass into the ravine, the garbage dump, anywhere, but I ask you in a civil and humble voice not to plant it in my yard. Your motives are above reproach, but my motives, I feel, because I'm approaching my tenderest years, must be considered first. Yes, sir. Bill pocketed the bills reluctantly. Bill, you just plant this new grass some other year. The day after I die, Bill, you're free to tear up this whole damn lawn. Think you can wait another 5 years or so for an old orator to kick off? I know darn well I can wait, Bill said. There's a thing about the lawnmower. I can't even tell you, but to me it's the most beautiful sound in the world. The freshest sound of the season, the sound of summer, and I'd miss it fearfully if it wasn't there. And I'd miss the smell of cut grass. Bill bent to pick up a flat. Here I go to the ravine. You're a good, understanding young man, and will make a brilliant and sensitive reporter, said Grandfather, helping him. This I predict. The morning passed. Noon came on. Grandpa retired after lunch, read a little Whittier, and slept well on through the day. When he awoke at 3, the sun was streaming through the windows, bright and fresh. He lay in bed and was startled to hear the familiar, the memorable sound. Why, he said, someone's using the lawnmower? But the lawn was just cut this morning. He listened again, and yes, there it was, the endless droning chatter up and down, up and down. He leaned out the window and gaped. Why, it's Bill! Bill Forrester, you there? Has the sun got you? You're cutting the lawn again? Bill looked up again, a white smile, and waved. I know. I think I missed a few spots. And while Grandpa lay in bed for the next 5 minutes, smiling and at ease, Bill Forrester cut the lawn north, then west, then south, and finally, in a great green spraying fountain toward the east. On Sunday morning, Leo Offman moved slowly through his garage, expecting some wood, a curl of wire, a hammer or wrench to leap up, crying, "Start here!" But nothing leaped, nothing cried for a beginning. Should a happiness machine, he wondered, be something you can carry in your pocket? Or, he went on, should it be something that carries you in its pocket? One thing I absolutely know, he said aloud, it should be bright. He set a can of orange paint in the center of the workbench, picked up a dictionary, and wandered into the house. "Lena," he glanced at the dictionary, "are you pleased, contented, joyful, delighted? Do you feel lucky, fortunate? Are things clever and fitting, successful and suitable for you?" Lena stopped slicing vegetables and closed her eyes. "Read me the list again, please," she said. He shut the book. "What have I done? You've got to stop and think an hour before you can tell me. All I ask is a simple yes or no. You're not contented, delightful, joyful?" "Cows are contented. Babies and old people in second childhood are delighted. God help them," she said. "As for joyful, Leo, look how I laugh scrubbing out the sink." He peered closely at her and his face relaxed. "Lena, it's true. A man doesn't appreciate. Next month, maybe we'll get away." "I'm not complaining," she cried. "I'm not the one who comes in with a list saying, 'Stick out your tongue.' Leo, do you ask what makes your heart beat all night? No. Next, will you ask, what's marriage? Who knows, Leo? Don't ask. A man who thinks like that, how it runs, how things works, falls off the trapeze in the circus, chokes, wondering how the muscles work in the throat. Eat, sleep, breathe, Leo, and stop staring at me like I'm something new in the house." Leo Offman froze. She sniffed the air. "Oh my gosh, look what you've done." She yanked the oven door open. A great cloud of smoke poured through the kitchen. "Happiness," she wailed, "and for the first time in 6 months we have a fight. Happiness, and for the first time in 20 years it's not bread, it's charcoal for supper." When the smoke cleared, Leo Offman was gone. The fearful clangor, the collision of man and inspiration, the flinging about of metal, lumber, hammer, nails, T-square, screwdriver continued for many days. On occasion, defeated, Leo Offman loitered out through the streets, nervous, apprehensive, jerking his head at the slightest sound of distant laughter, listened to children's jokes, watched what made them smile. At night he sat on neighbors' crowded porches, listening to the old folks weigh and balance life. And at each explosion of merriment, Leo Offman quickened like a general who has seen the forces of darkness routed and whose strategy has been reaffirmed. On his way home, he felt triumphant until he was in his garage with the dead tools and the inanimate lumber. Then his bright face fell away in a pale funk, and to cover his sense of failure, he banged and crashed the parts of his machine about as if they really did make sense. At last it began to shape itself, and at the end of the 10 days and nights, trembling with fatigue, self-dedicated, half-starved, fumbling and looking as if he had been riven by lightning, Leo Offman wandered into his house. The children, who had been screaming horribly at each other, fell silent, as if the Red Death had entered at the chiming of the clock. "The happiness machine," husked Leo Offman, "is ready." "Leo Offman," said his wife, "has lost 15 pounds. He hasn't talked to his children in 2 weeks. They are nervous. They fight. Listen. His wife is nervous. She's gained 10 pounds. She'll need new clothes. Look. Sure, the machine is ready, but happy? Who can say? Leo, leave off with the clock you're building. You'll never find a cuckoo big enough to go in it. Man was not made to tamper with such things. It's not against God, no, but it sure looks like it's against Leo Offman. Another week of this and we'll bury him in his machine." But Leo Offman was too busy noticing that the room was falling swiftly up. How interesting, he thought, lying on the floor. Darkness closed in a great wink on him as someone screamed something about that happiness machine 3 times. The first thing he noticed the next morning was dozens of birds fluttering around in the air, stirring up ripples like colored stones thrown into an incredibly clear stream, gonging the tin roof of the garage softly. A pack of multi-bred dogs paw-footed one by one into the yard to peer and whine gently through the garage door. 4 boys, 2 girls, and some men hesitated in the driveway and then edged along under the cherry trees. Leo Hoffman, listening, knew what it was that had reached out and called them into the yard. The sound of the happiness machine. It was the sort of sound that might be heard coming from a giant's kitchen on a summer day. There were all kinds of hummings, low and high, steady and then changing. Incredible foods were being baked there by a host of whirring golden bees as big as teacups. The giantess herself, humming contentedly under her breath, might glide to the door. As vast as all summer, her face a huge peach-colored moon, gazing calmly out upon smiling dogs, corn-haired boys, and flower-haired old men. "Wait," said Leo Hoffman out loud. "I didn't turn the machine on this morning." Saul, standing in the yard below, looked up. "Saul, did you turn it on?" "You told me to warm it up half an hour ago." "All right, Saul, I forgot. I'm not awake." He fell back in bed. His wife, bringing his breakfast up, paused by the window, looking down at the garage. "Tell me," she said quietly, "if that machine is like you say, has it got an answer to making babies in it somewhere? Can that machine make 70-year-old people 20? Also, how does death look when you hide in there with all that happiness?" "Hide? If you died from overwork, what should I do today? Climb in that big box down there and be happy? Also, tell me, Leo, how is our life? You know, how our house is. 7 a.m, breakfast, the kids, all of you gone by 8:30, and it's just me and washing, and me and cooking, and socks to be darned, weeds to be dug, or I run to the store or polish silver. Who's complaining? I'm just reminding you how the house is put together, Leo. What's in it? So now answer, how do you get all those things I said in one machine?" "That's not how it's built." I'm sorry, I've got no time to look then." And she kissed his cheek and went from the room, and he lay smelling the wind that blew from the hidden machine below, rich with the odor of those roasted chestnuts that sold in the autumn streets of a Paris he had never known. A cat moved unseen among the hypnotized dogs and boys to purr against the garage door, in the sound of snow waves crumbling down a faraway and rhythmically breathing shore. "Tomorrow," thought Leo Hoffman, "we'll try the machine, all of us together." Late that night he awoke and knew something had awakened him. Far away in another room he heard someone crying. "Saul?" he whispered, getting out of bed. In his room Saul wept, his head buried in his pillow. "No, no," he sobbed. "Over and over." "Saul, you had a nightmare. Tell me about it, son." But the boy only wept. And sitting there on the boy's bed, Leo Hoffman suddenly thought to look out the window. Below, the garage door stood open. He felt the hairs rise along the back of his neck. When Saul slept again, uneasily, whimpering, his father went downstairs and out to the garage where, not breathing, he put his hand out. In the cool night, the happiness machine's metal was too hot to touch. So, he thought, Saul was here tonight. Why? Was Saul unhappy, in need of the machine? No, happy, but wanting to hold on to happiness always? Could you blame a boy wise enough to know his position who tried to keep it that way? No. And yet, above, quite suddenly, something white was exhaled from Saul's window. Leo Hoffman's heart thundered. Then he realized the window curtain had blown out into the open night, but it had seemed as intimate and shimmering a thing as a boy's soul escaping his room. And Leo Hoffman had flung up his hands as if to thwart it, push it back into the sleeping house. Cold, shivering, he moved back into the house and up to Saul's room, where he seized the blowing curtain in and locked the window tight. so the pale thing could not escape again. Then he sat on the bed and put his hand on Saul's back. A tale of two cities? Mine. The old curiosity shop? Ha! That's Leo Offman's all right. Great Expectations? That used to be mine. But let Great Expectations be his now. What's this? Asked Leo Offman, entering. This, said his wife, is sorting out the community property. When a father scares his son at night, it's time to chop everything in half. Out of the way. Mr. Bleakhouse, old curiosity shop. In all these books, no mad scientist lives like Leo Offman. None. You're leaving? You haven't even tried the machine, he protested. Try it on. You'll unpack. You'll stay. Tom Swift and his electric annihilator. Whose is that? She asked. Must I guess? Snorting, she gave Tom Swift to Leo Offman. Very late in the day, all the books, dishes, clothes, linens have been stacked, 1 here, 1 there, 4 here, 4 there, 10 here, 10 there. Lena Offman, dizzy with counting, had to sit down. All right, she gasped. Before I go, Leo, prove you don't give nightmares to innocent sons. Silently, Leo Offman led his wife into the twilight. She stood before the 8-foot-tall, orange-colored box. That's happiness, she said. Which button do I press to be overjoyed, grateful, contented, and much obliged? The children had gathered now. Mama, said Saul, don't. I've got to know what I'm yelling about, Saul. She got in the machine, sat down, and looked out at her husband, shaking her head. It's not me needs this. It's you, a nervous wreck, shouting. Please, he said, you'll see. He shut the door. Press the button, he shouted in at his unseen wife. There was a click. The machine shivered quietly, like a huge dog dreaming in its sleep. Papa, said Saul, worried. Listen, said Leo Offman. At first there was nothing but the tremor of the machine's own secretly moving cogs and wheels. Is Mama all right? Asked Naomi. All right, she's fine. There now, there. And inside the machine, Lena Offman could be heard saying, oh, and then again, ah, in a startled voice, look at that. And his hidden wife, Paris, and later, London. There goes Rome, the pyramids, the Sphinx. The Sphinx, you hear, children? Leo Offman whispered and laughed. Perfume, cried Lena Offman, surprised. Somewhere a phonograph played the Blue Danube, faintly. Music. I'm dancing. Only think she's dancing, the father confided to the world. Amazing, said the unseen woman. Leo Offman blushed. What an understanding wife. And then inside the happiness machine, Lena Offman began to weep. The inventor's smile faded. She's crying, said Naomi. She can't be. She is, said Saul. She simply can't be crying, Leo Offman, blinking, pressed his ear to the machine. But yes, like a baby. He could only open the door. Wait! There his wife sat, tears rolling down her cheeks. Let me finish. She cried some more. Leo Offman turned off the machine, stunned. Oh, it's the saddest thing in the world, she wailed. I feel awful. Terrible. She climbed out through the door. First, there was Paris. What's wrong with Paris? I never even thought of being in Paris in my life. But now you've got me thinking Paris, so suddenly I want to be in Paris, and I know I'm not. It's almost as good, this machine. No, sitting in there, I thought it's not real. Stop crying, Mama. She looked at him with great dark wet eyes. You had me dancing. We haven't danced in 20 years. I'll take you dancing tomorrow night. No, it's not important. It shouldn't be important. But your machine says it's important, so I believe it'll be all right, Leo, after I cry some more. What else? What else? The machine says you're young. I'm not. It lies, that sadness machine. Sad in what way? His wife was quieter now. Leo, The mistake you made is you forgot some hour, someday, we all got to climb out of this thing and go back to dirty dishes and the bed's not made. While you're in this thing, sure, a sunset lasts forever almost. The air smells good, the temperature is fine, all the things you want to last. But outside, the children wait on lunch, the clothes need buttons, and then, let's be frank, Leo, how long can you look at a sunset? Who wants a sunset to last? Who wants perfect temperature? Who wants air smelling good always? So after a while, who would notice? Better for a minute or two, a sunset. After that, let's have something else. People are like that, Leo. How could you forget? Did I? Sunsets we always liked because they only happen once and go away. But Lena, that's sad. No. If the sunset stayed and we got bored, that would be a real sadness. So 2 things you did, you should never have. You made quick things go slow and stay around. You brought things far away to our backyard where they don't belong, where they just tell you, no, you'll never travel, Lena Hoffman. Paris you'll never see. Rome you'll never visit. But I always knew that, so why tell me? Better to forget and make do, Leo. Make do. Hey. Leo Hoffman leaned against the machine for support. He snatched his burned hands away, surprised. So now what, Lena? He asked. It's not for me to say. I know only so long as this thing is here, I'll want to come out. Or Saul will want to come out like he did last night, and against our judgment sit in it, and look at all those places so far away, and every time we'll cry and be no fit family for you. I don't understand, he said. How could I be so wrong? Just let me check to see what you say is true. He sat down inside the machine. You won't go away? His wife nodded. We'll wait, Leo. He shut the door. In the warm darkness, he hesitated, pressed the button, and was just relaxing back in color and music when he heard someone screaming. Fire! Papa, the machine's on fire! Someone hammered the door. He leaped up, bumped his head, and fell out the door, gave way, and the boys dragged him out. Behind him, he heard a muffled explosion. The entire family was running now. Leo Hoffman turned and gasped, Saul, call the fire department! Lena Hoffman caught Saul as he ran. Saul, she said, wait. There was a gush of flame, another muffled explosion. When the machine was burning very well indeed, Lena Hoffman nodded. All right, Saul, she said, run. Call the fire department. Everybody who was anybody came to the fire. There was Grandpa Spaulding and Douglas and Tom and most of the boarders and some of the old men from across the ravine and all the children from 6 blocks around. And Leo Hoffman's children stood out front, proud of how fine the flames looked jumping from the garage roof. Grandfather Spaulding studied the smoke ball in the sky and said quietly, Leo, was that it? Your happiness machine? Some year, said Leo Hoffman. I'll figure it and I'll tell you. Lena Hoffman, standing in the dark now, watched as the fireman ran in and out of her yard. The garage roaring settled upon itself. Leo, she said, it won't take a year to figure. Look around. Think. Keep quiet a little bit, then come tell me. I'll be in the house putting books back on shelves and clothes back in closets, fixing supper. Supper's late. Look how dark. Come, children. Help Mama. When the firemen and the neighbors were gone, Leo Hoffman was left with Grandfather Spaulding and Douglas and Tom brooding over the smoldering ruins. He stirred his foot in the wet ashes and slowly said what he had to say. The first thing you'll learn in life is you're a fool. The last thing you'll learn in life is you're the same fool. In 1 hour, I've done a lot of thinking. I thought, Leo Hoffman is blind. You want to see the real happiness machine? The one they patented a couple thousand years ago, it still runs. Not good all the time, no, but it runs. It's been here all along. But the fire, said Douglas. Sure, the fire, the garage, but like Lena said, it doesn't take a year to figure what burned in the garage doesn't count. They followed him up the front porch steps. Here, whispered Leo Hoffman, the front window. Quiet, and you'll see it. Hesitantly, Grandfather, Douglas, and Tom peered through the large window pane. And there, in small, warm pools of lamplight, you could see what Leo Hoffman wanted you to see. There sat Saul and Marshall playing chess at the coffee table. In the dining room, Rebecca was laying out the silver. Naomi was cutting paper doll dresses. Ruth was painting watercolors. Joseph was running his electric train. Through the kitchen door, Lena Hoffman was sliding a pot roast from the steaming oven. Every hand, every head, every mouth made a big or little motion. You could hear their faraway voices under glass. You could hear someone singing in a high, sweet voice. You could smell bread baking, too, and you knew it was real bread that would soon be covered with real butter. Everything was there, and it was working. Grandfather, Douglas, and Tom turned to look at Leo Hoffman, who gazed serenely through the window, the pink light on his cheeks. "Sure," he murmured, "there it is." And he watched with now gentle sorrow and now quick delight, and at last quick acceptance, quiet acceptance, as all the bits and pieces of this house mixed, stirred, settled, poised, and ran steadily again. "The happiness machine," he said. "The happiness machine." And a moment later, he was gone. Inside, Grandfather, Douglas, and Tom saw him tinkering, make a minor adjustment here, eliminate friction there, busy among all those warm, wonderful, infinitely delicate, forever mysterious, and ever-moving parts. Then, smiling, they went down the steps into the fresh summer night. I love that chapter. I love it. We live our own happiness machine. It can't be invented. It's the sum of all the parts around us. I hope you enjoyed today's reading. I'll see you next week.